Well, Fox News learning one of the men charged after the ambush at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, entered the country illegally over 20 years ago and was granted a green card under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, 4 more people who tried to sabotage an ICE operation with homemade tire spikes have been arrested in California. Here to talk about it, former Trump DOJ prosecutor Jim Trusty. Jim, good morning. Let's go to this case in Alvarado, Texas. We're learning more and more, particularly about this individual that was a DACA recipient, green card holder. Where do you see this prosecution going, and what do we need to know about it?
Yeah, well, the DACA guy is a little bit of a separate strand. You know, you have 10 people that were engaged in a highly premeditated ambush of an ICE facility and ICE agents. They set up a lure by vandalizing, by shooting fireworks. When the agents started to come out, they shot 20 to 30 rounds with AR-15. So starting point on that part of the case is I'd very much like to see a plead to the sheep mentality by the prosecutors. In other words, saying, hey, you've got attempted murder charges, you've got firearm charges, you can plead guilty to everything and beg the judge for mercy, but you're not getting it from me. I think that might be the tone that gets taken by the U.S. Attorney's Office in North Texas. This guy, Sanchez Estrada, was kind of an outlier to it in that he was the spouse of one of the people involved in the ambush. And the spouse called him and said, hey, they might be coming your way. And he apparently tried to get rid of a bunch of hateful literature that was inside the house. So he's charged with kind of a lower grade offense, an obstruction type offense. And the DACA stuff, you know, look, it's obviously newsworthy. He also renewed his DACA status a couple of times during other administrations. Look, I don't think it rises to the level of the outrage that you see in my state, Maryland, where, you know, young women are raped and murdered by illegal aliens that never should have been here. But that's obviously, you know, yet another moment of the immigration system failing to protect the community. But again, the primary thing to worry about is the fact that 10 people would come together and decide it's time to murder ICE agents, shooting one in the neck. I'm very worried that Kristi Noem and Tom Homan are going to be attending a funeral if we don't find a way to change the mentality that's spreading around this country about ICE.
That is absolutely the concern of every border and immigration official out there. And, you know, specifically with this case, was this, I'll ask you, in your opinion, a coordinated, premeditated attack? You had 10 individuals with AR-style rifles, body armor. They had two-way radios. They even had cell phones in a Faraday bag, which is used to conceal communication.
Yeah, they had body armor, 12 suits of body armor for this group as well. And look, the actions tell you that it was coordinated, right? It makes sense. This was a lure, like, let's get these guys to come out and we're going to go after them. But beyond that, right now, the investigation is undoubtedly going to recover communications between them, at least most likely. And those communications will kind of cement the deal that this was an absolutely coordinated, premeditated, heinous act by 5 men and 5 women in particular that knew exactly what they were in for when they showed up at that ICE facility.
Jim, let me turn here a little bit to Kilmar Abrego-Garcia. Judge Paul Zenas expected today to weigh in on whether or not the DOJ must announce its witness to basically detail what the government, the administration plans to do with him should he be released. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is more kind of judicially assisted lawfare chaos. That's the short version. The slightly longer version is this. You know, he has human smuggling charges in Nashville. The magistrate judge has basically said, I think we can actually cut him loose on these charges, let him be on some conditions of home confinement, et cetera, where he'll show up for court without being incarcerated. But normally what that would mean in this case is that the ICE detainer kicks in, he's taken into ICE custody and quite possibly removed soon. Judge Zenas in Maryland has a kind of parallel fight going on where the ACLU lawyers are actually asking her, can you order Nashville to send him here because we're worried ICE is about to deport him. In fact, they've asked the judge to not release him too quickly from Nashville because they want to litigate a bunch of stuff in Maryland. And look, short version, in Maryland, it looks like the judge is taking things very personally, that she's frustrated with the DOJ representation and the response. She's ordering things like an ICE official to come to court in Greenbelt, Maryland to explain what's going to happen next. I think this is the kind of stuff where the Supreme Court eventually once again might say, hey, look, we're not going to have 700 district court judges micromanaging the executive branch and shut it down. But in the meantime, plenty of litigation, plenty of chaos, and kind of a tug of war between Nashville and Maryland about where this guy's going to be.
Chaos, probably the right word there. We'll see where it goes. Jim Trusty, thank you.
All right, thanks, Griff.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.